Have you ever thought that you needed more of me in your life? Well, Ubisoft thinks you need more Assassin's Creed, so I've decided that you need more of me. Not only do I have multiple channels all in the description down below that you can check out and follow, including a Let's Play channel where we hang out podcast style, my wife's channel where we review collectibles and do anime videos, a horror channel, the list goes on and on, but also now I have joined Threads. What's Threads, you ask? Well, for one, it's the name of my sewing class, but also it is a new app, kind of like Twitter, but not cancer yet. So if you get in on the ground floor, you'll be able to look back and say, I remember the good old days before this thing went to hell. And follow me over there. It's like Twitter, but not cancer. That should probably be the slogan. Very easy to follow if you have an Instagram account already, even easier. Let's hop into the video. Now, speaking of needing more of something, I think that Ubisoft is going a little overboard, and this is quite a bit coming from me because I'm the guy who looks at this series and I say, hey, now hold on. I know some people don't like the newer RPGs, but I enjoy them. And I'm also the guy who looks at the series and says, now hold on, I know some people don't like how many games there are, but I've liked pretty much all of them in different ways. All right, I'm pretty open to Assassin's Creed games existing. I'm a very big fan of the franchise. I love the climbing, I love the combat in the different games, the exploration of history. But even someone like me, who is open to these games and currently has been looking to find these side games on things like the Nintendo DS of all things, is not excited for the idea of 11 current Assassin's Creed games being planned in development. That's too much. Now, it's worth noting that there have been a lot of different gaming sites covering this, including Insider Gaming, who actually was one of the websites that had an exclusive report all the way back in February where they were talking about code names, developers, and descriptions of different Assassin's Creed titles. There is now a new report as well saying that yet another title is in the works, which was the Black Flag remake, and there's even more than that. So if we actually look at this list of games, there are 11 current games supposedly being greenlit / discussed / in early development. Not all of them are heavy in development. It's not like all of these games will launch in 2024 together or something ridiculous, but I wanted to take a look at this because this is just too much. So currently Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is a single player game, is in production and it's planned to launch on October 12th of 2023, not too far away from now. Next up, we knew about Assassin's Creed Nexus, the VR game. I don't really have much interest in this. It's in production coming out in 2023. Codename Jade, we already know about. It's a mobile game expected in 2023. So we already have 3 experiences expected in 2023. Then we also have Codename Red, which is a single player game. People suggest 2024. Then we have Hex, which is a single player game expected between 2025 and 26. Invictus, which is a multiplayer game expected in 2025 to 2026. Nebula, which is, these are not actually going to be called these things. These are their code names. But Nebula is just in the concept stages or the prototyping stages, so very early. There's no expected release date for this. I would have to say that everything we're talking about now would be at probably the earliest 2027, but essentially it would be Nebula single player, Raid is multiplayer, Echoes is multiplayer, Assassin's Creed Nexus 2, which is a VR game being discussed already, I guess. They have a lot of faith in the Nexus game. And then the Black Flag remake, which is supposedly actually greenlit and happening. If it is, it's odd to me, but I've already talked about that. I have a whole video about the Assassin's Creed 4 remake, why I don't really think it is necessary at all, but if it's done well, I suppose it could be good. Maybe worth checking out, I don't really know. But there's a lot of different things going on with this. It's worth noting that Ubisoft Sofia, which was known for co-developing AC3 Liberation and Rogue, were the ones who pitched Project Nebula, which is actually a game that supposedly has 3 different settings: India, the Aztec Empire, and the Mediterranean. So I'm not really sure how that would work. But Assassin's Creed Chronicles already did that. It could be something similar to that. Ubisoft Chengdu, or is it Chengdu? I don't really know, pitched Project Raid, which is supposedly a free-to-play 4-player cooperative title that will be PvE. This actually sounds fun to me, but I will say that I'm a little soured on Assassin's Creed multiplayer after they shut down pretty much all their multiplayers except 4. It's just kind of frustrating to me because, you make these good multiplayer experiences, they are always shut down later on. So it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, oh boy, a game with a expiration date. That's definitely what I need in my busy life where I already don't have time to get to games. Can't wait for that. I already missed out on things like Metal Gear Online because I just never had time and it got shut down, so oh boy. And then Ubisoft Annecy, or Annecy, I don't get what's up with these names. I'm sure that they are places, but I'm going to be honest with you, I've never been to any of them. I'm just a little small town boy from America. But this group has actually been known for developing the multiplayer portion of games like the old Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell titles. I actually like the old multiplayer portions of the older Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell titles, so this is interesting to me. But the Echoes game is described as a multiplayer title that will use Ubisoft Scalar technology, a foundational technology leveraging the possibilities of cloud computing to enable unprecedented freedom and scale for the games of tomorrow. I'm not really a big fan of mixing gaming with the cloud unless you're just using it to actually store your data. I don't really like games having to actually run off of the cloud because running off of the cloud means it requires an internet connection all the time. It's a persistent internet connection because essentially what that's doing is it's using the internet, using the cloud technology to make your computing device compute more. So essentially it's like, you know how every computing device, every PC, every PS5, every Xbox, even Nintendo Game Boy, they have a set amount of computing power. Now you can maximize that by optimizing your game, really knowing that technology when you're a developer and getting it to do the best it can. But we've also seen what happens when people push it too far and the game doesn't run right at all, or when they don't push it far enough at all and the game looks like ass and it doesn't look like it should have come out in the modern day. We've seen examples of all of these. The whole point of cloud computing is essentially, well, now we don't need to rely on just what's in the plastic box you have. Now we can rely on infinite computing power out on the internet. It's a cool idea. I guess if you're already going to be stuck online playing your game, and that's the only way to play your game, it's not really like it's harming anything, because if you have to connect to the internet to play the multiplayer, I guess the game is worthless without the internet anyway. So it's not really like that's a bad thing for a multiplayer game. What worries me about that technology is there's been a lot of pushes to incorporate it in single player games, which I think personally just makes those single player games, they're going to hit a point where they just don't work without the internet, which makes me wonder why they're single player. But that's something that supposedly is going to happen with that title for this actual, for this multiplayer title. So it's interesting because there is a lot of stuff going on with this, and I don't know. I know that they want to go back to yearly releases kind of and push it that way, and there was a lot of talk about them having these investor calls and saying like, hey, we're not making as much money as we should be. We're going to push AC more. The thing that bothers me with this is, as someone who's a huge fan of this franchise, when you push out everything at once, right? Or when you're trying to push so many games, I personally think it means each one is going to get a little bit less attention, right? A little less love and care. That's what this comes off as to me. I really like more the idea of taking your time a little bit. Maybe the Insomniac approach of Marvel's Spider-Man would be a better example, where it's like they're not actually just jamming that thing out the door right away to hit a yearly release. They could have. They easily could have pushed Spider-Man PS4 out, and then a year and a half later pushed out another game with the same map and everything. And yes, I know they did do Miles Morales, but there was a lot of different changes and enhancements to that game, and it was actually mainly made for the PS5, not just like a Call of Duty type thing where they recycle a ton of things. But for me, this kind of worries me when it comes to Assassin's Creed, because it feels like they're forgetting the lesson that they had to learn with Unity. The lesson was that if you try and just shove things out the door to meet these release quotas, and in order to get a certain amount of games out there, you can really damage your brand. And I know Assassin's Creed still sells very well. I'm one of the people who really enjoys it even now. But there already is a lot of skepticism around Assassin's Creed. Love them or hate them, it does not matter to this point. But those RPG games, that whole trilogy essentially, especially starting with Odyssey and then Valhalla, they did push a lot of people away from the franchise. They also brought in a lot of new people. So now you have a problem with splitting your player base. Now you have the question of, what is Assassin's Creed? Genuinely, what is it? Because you can sit here and yell into the void all you want. It's every game from Assassin's Creed 1 through the end of Syndicate. But there's still a whole trilogy of games that tons of people consider Assassin's Creed that came out after that sold millions of copies. So it doesn't matter if you think it's just 1 through Syndicate. On the other hand, you can sit here and yell, well, now Assassin's Creed is the RPG style. Well, okay, there's a whole group of people who grew up playing these games who played 1 through Syndicate, and to them, that was not really what they wanted Assassin's Creed to be. So you can say, well, I came in at, Origins, that's what it is to me, that's fine. That's not what it is to them. So now you have this problem of sort of a player-based split where I just see a lot of people argue about this, even in the comments of my videos anytime this comes up, always about like what Assassin's Creed is to me and why you're wrong for liking Valhalla or why you're wrong for enjoying Origins or something. People are very protective of the series and have a lot of very strong opinions on it. So when you already have a split player base, and now what you're doing is saying, hey, by the way, we're going to make this game that's supposed to kind of be like the old games, Mirage. Hey, by the way, now we're going to make VR games. Hey, by the way, now we're making mobile games. Hey, by the way, now we're making multiplayer games. It's like you already have a player base that argues about what your game should be. You already have a player base that has a lot of opinions on what these games should be. And for me, I've thought for a while they could be a variety of things. One of my favorite games in this series actually is Assassin's Creed Chronicles China. Beautiful, art style. I thought the gameplay was really fun. I suck at it. I mainly watch my wife Jill play it. I don't know why I'm so bad at it, but she is really good at it. I thought a game like that was really fun. And yet probably neither group would look at that and say that's what they think Assassin's Creed is. Probably neither group. The hugely, the OG fans, like the I just love 1 through Revelations, or the people who are like, I liked 1 through 3, and after modern day wasn't as big, I didn't care. Or even the people who are like, I love the original style only, 1 through Syndicate. All of those groups, and even the group who's like RPGs, that's what it is. It's that these last 3. I don't think any of them would sit there and say Assassin's Creed Chronicles China is what I think of Assassin's Creed. Even those old multiplayer games, I actually want to go back and take some looks at the old multiplayer experiences. So if you're interested in that, be sure to stay tuned. I already did it for Brotherhood, but I have a ton of footage of Revelations and AC3 before the shutdown. And something interesting I noticed with the Brotherhood multiplayer video, it was the same thing. Even back then, there were people arguing about what Assassin's Creed is. That was a title from one of the first Assassin's Creed games ever made, Brotherhood. Pretty old. And yet people were like, this isn't Assassin's Creed. This was a tacked on multiplayer. This isn't what it is. So when you already have this massively split player base that argues all the time about what your game should be, and now you're mandating like 11 different releases, and half of them are different types of games, I'm just kind of wondering if that's going to be good for your brand or not. On the one hand, you could say they're diversifying the brand. Maybe this will find different audiences, and then the people like me who just love the history portion and love the characters and stuff, they'll probably play most of them. And maybe these other ones will find niche audiences and individual people and stuff. But also, you have a lot of problems here with everyone else and your general audience and how you get them to buy into these games, and also how you get them to buy into the games when every other one is a different type of game. If Red and Hex, if like Red is an original game, I'm just making it up. Let's say like Red was a original style game played like Assassin's Creed 4, and then Hex plays like Origins, and then Invictus plays like the Brotherhood multiplayer, and then Nebula played like Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Well, okay, now you're also going to have the problem of what is Assassin's Creed to each of these people? What's the jumping on point? What are they going to think about it? Are they going to try your next game and say, that's ass, I'm going back to Invictus, this sucks? That's another problem too. So I'm not really sure how you do this kind of thing and how you manage to juggle this many titles without just kind of pissing everybody off and kind of sullying what your brand is. I know there are games and things like Star Wars maybe that are a great example of a varied brand. They can make games that are shooters, games that are platformers, games that are side-scrollers, but they've been doing that forever. Almost every time Assassin's Creed has tried to change direction, it's been met with a lot of resistance. So I'm just not really sure this is a great idea. This seems like a good way to either really massively help your brand or really hurt it. I also do think at some level, this is a little bit insulting for fans of other Ubisoft properties. Now, I may love Assassin's Creed and I make videos about it regularly, but there are a lot of people who are fans of things that are not Assassin's Creed for Ubisoft, things that barely ever get a game, if even. Things like Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. Even things like Ghost Recon, which still get games, but is not at all what it used to be. That franchise has completely changed. It's nothing like it was back in the day. You know, games like Rainbow Six, that's nothing like it used to be. It's completely transformed to basically just a multiplayer game. A lot of people really like the original style of that game. Nobody hears their voice on it. They don't get games like that anymore. So I guess it's a little frustrating to me to see, not only from an Assassin's Creed fan perspective, but also from the perspective of someone who has enjoyed a lot of these other series they used to make or used to make differently, and also talking to people who really like some of those. And so to kind of see this announcement of, hey, there's pretty much 11 games in development, maybe even more, but we can barely bother to take the time and money to make one Splinter Cell game in a decade, I guess it's just kind of sad to me. It comes off really like milking this concept instead of just making games as the point to them arises and as you have good ideas. This comes off more like mandating releases of a series, and I'm not really a big fan of that. It's kind of disappointing to me. I hope that all these games come out and they're all great. I hope every single one of these is super creative, fantastic game, because at the end of the day, I like this series. I really like the history. I really like the climbing. I really like the combat. I like the characters. I like, just everything kind of going on there. And none of them are perfect, but I really like it. I think it's a really fun style and recipe for a gaming series. So I hope that these games are good, but I don't really think this is the way to handle this sort of thing. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe for more content. I appreciate you all very, very much. I'm going to be bringing back as well actually full game reviews as I play through games. I want to make some videos about that. Like I said at the beginning of this video, we have plenty of other channels, and we also do have a new Threads account where you can follow us and see, announcements and things that are going on, and a ton of different social media in the description down below. But anyway, we hope you have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shui.